So if you're one of my teenage friends who's just learning how to play guitar, I am here to explain to you today the difference between modeling pedal boards versus analog pedal boards. What is up, Yoshis? My name is Beth and I run Steadfast Ascent, and today the primary difference between a modeling pedal board and an analog pedal board is that a modeling pedal board takes the analog pedal board sound and puts it all into one interface, whereas an analog pedal board is a smorgasbord of pedals that you assemble together yourself, creating a signal chain that makes a kind of sound. All a pedal board does is it takes the signal of your guitar, runs it through the different effects, whether it's of your modeling software or the effects of your analog pedals in the string chain that they are placed, and it sends it to either the amp or your DI box or however you're using to make the big noise. Might even be headphones. And it faithfully represents the sound that comes from changing the signal through that path. Analog pedal boards came first, and basically the way they work is that each pedal has pretty much a single effect that it will play on your signal. So it is important to arrange the signal chain in a certain way, because as it goes through each pedal, it is getting a new effect. And the sum of these effects is affected by the order in which you add the effect to the signal. So for example, if I put on reverb before I put in distortion, I am distorting a reverberated sound. Whereas if I put distortion first and then reverb, I am reverberating a distorted sound. Now you may think, but isn't the sum the same? Not on an analog pedal board, because at each pedal, at each point in the signal flow, you are changing the sound with your effect. Now you can put your pedals into bypass, which means that the signal is bypassing the effect and going to the next effect. Analog pedal boards are so great. In a worship context, they make the warmer sounds. They make the greater gains. They are more easily adaptable to your sound system, but they are harder to learn and they are more expensive to assemble, because while you can spend $200 on a single modeling pedal board, you can spend $200 on a single distortion pedal. And in fact, the volume pedal that I recommend is like $150 by itself. So in terms of getting good sound for a good price, the analog pretty much loses. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. In terms of the quality of sound, of course, it wins. But we'll get to that in a second, because modeling pedal boards put all of that analog goodness into one place. And they model, using computer software, the sound that an analog pedal board would make if it was in the system. So the pros of modeling software is that instead of having to buy every single pedal that you'd ever want to try out ever once in your life, it's all pretty much modeled on the software, or at least you'll have a great selection of different kinds of pedals to choose from. Now, granted, you have to remember, these aren't the actual pedals, these are models of the pedals. And this is where modeling pedal boards kind of suck, because the sound that you get from the imitation is not the same as the sound that you get from the real thing. Plus there's all sorts of copyright stuff that actually makes it a little difficult to accurately model certain things. And because you're using a digital interface instead of an analog interface, it changes things a little bit. I personally think modeling makes more sense in this day and age, because while the sound is better analog, you can get a good sound through a modeling pedal board. And having that many different sounds at your disposal allows you to be more creative and to try more things and to figure out what kinds of things you actually like without having to spend hundreds of dollars on pedals that you may or may not end up using. And all my real guitar friends are probably crying in the corner right now and are about to angrily message me in the comments about how I'm wrong, because analog is better, but it's not better to start with, and you don't ever have to actually get there if you don't want to, and that's okay. So modeling pedal boards definitely win in terms of price, because you can get a single modeling pedal board that will have all of the effects that you can possibly put in an analog chain in one piece of equipment that costs less than $200, although it can cost up to $2,000. So I mean, you really have options. If you get a cheap analog pedal board, you're not going to get a good sound. You would get a better sound just buying a modeling pedal board than doing a cheap analog pedal board. I found that out the hard way. The other thing about modeling pedal boards is that the way that the software runs doesn't always change the effects the way that it does in analog. So for example, if on a modeling pedal board I have a distortion signal and I have a reverb signal, changing the order doesn't necessarily make a difference. Sometimes it does. It depends on the modeling software and how it works. But sometimes you get modeling pedal boards where it just applies the effect. It doesn't apply it in a certain order. So overall, if you're just getting started and you want to see what different kinds of sounds your guitar can make, you want a modeling pedal board. But if you're in this for the long haul and you want to really play with sound and tone, you're going to want to start getting into analog pedaling. And that's my opinion, and if you have a different opinion, I would love to hear it and or tell us so that our learning friends can learn more with us. Do you own a modeling pedal board or do you own an analog pedal board? And if you do, let us know what the pros and cons are of each. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope to see you next time.